Stop right there.
Hands up! Don't move here!
I didn't do anything wrong.
The sirens weren't blaring. That was the strange part. Marcus Reed noticed the silence before the blow, a silence that pressed against his eardrums harder than any noise could. The police cruiser had crept up behind him in the half-lit parking lot. Headlights off, tires whispering over cracked asphalt. He'd just left the grocery store, 2 bags cutting into his hands, milk, bread, coffee, ordinary things. But the night was about to unmake itself into something he would never forget. The officer stepped out slow, one hand already resting on his baton. No greeting, no explanation, just a cold stare and a voice that cut through the quiet. "You people don't belong here after dark." Marcus blinked. He was 54 years old, a decorated veteran, chest still broad under his worn coat, but in that moment he felt 12 again, standing small under the weight of a teacher's slur, a neighbor's suspicion, a country's denial. His pulse spiked, his jaw locked. The officer circled him, boot heels deliberate against pavement. A pair of teenagers across the street froze, watching with wide eyes. Someone's phone lit up, recording. The baton tapped once against Marcus's bag. The carton of milk tipped, spilling white across the ground like a wound opening. "Hands where I can see them." The command wasn't shouted, it was whispered, and that whisper carried the threat of everything Marcus had seen men do in war, and worse, what men did at home. He lifted his hands, breath tight, chest hollow. The night seemed to shrink around him, trapping him in its grip. The baton rose. And then the officer's radio crackled. A clipped voice, urgent. One word came through clear. "General." Marcus's world split in half. The parking lot lights hummed weakly, one flickering like a dying star. Marcus Reed set his grocery bags down on the trunk of his car, flexing the stiffness from his hands. His breath fogged in the October air. A long day, a quiet errand. He was ready to go home. But the silence had teeth. Officer Hale's cruiser had slid in behind him without lights. Now, boots scraped asphalt. The officer's shadow stretched long and sharp across the cracked pavement. "Evening," Marcus said, voice steady. Hale didn't answer. His eyes narrowed, gloved hand tapping the baton at his belt. "I did." Marcus frowned. "For what reason, officer?" Hale's lip curled. "For being where you don't belong." The words landed like a slap. Marcus's jaw tightened. "I just bought groceries, that's all." Hands on the hood. Now Marcus glanced around. 2 teenagers stood frozen near the sidewalk, their phone screens faintly glowing. A woman at the bus stop turned her face away. "Sir, there's no cause for this," Marcus said, keeping his tone level. His years of command training pressed against the rising heat in his chest. "Cause is what I say it is." Hale stepped forward, baton sliding free. Marcus raised his hand slowly, palms open. "I'm cooperating." The baton slammed against his ribs, sharp and sudden. Pain bloomed. His knees buckled, one hand bracing against the cold metal of his car. "Resisting already," Hale muttered, loud enough for the bystanders to hear. Marcus swallowed hard, blood hot in his mouth. "I'm not resisting." Hale shoved him down onto the hood, face pressed to steel. "Stay down." The groceries tumbled to the ground, milk bursting open, bread scattering, apples rolling across oil-stained pavement. A wallet slipped from Marcus's pocket as he struggled for air. It hit the ground, flipping open under the streetlight. The gold-embossed card inside glinted. The rank was unmistakable. General. Hale froze, eyes darting down. The night hung suspended in that fragile second. The precinct smelled of coffee, gone stale and bleached that never quite masked sweat. Fluorescent bulbs hummed overhead, washing every face in pale, unforgiving light. Marcus sat handcuffed on a hard metal chair, wrists burning. His groceries were gone, his dignity stripped to procedure. Officer Hale leaned over a desk, pen scratching paper. Suspect displayed aggressive behavior in the parking lot. Failed to comply. Attempted resistance. His words clipped, rehearsed, a story being shaped in real time. Marcus's jaw clenched. He said nothing. Years in uniform had taught him, silence can be sharper than words. Another officer, Ramirez, passed behind them, glancing once at Marcus's open wallet on the counter. The embossed insignia caught the light. His eyes widened, but his mouth stayed shut. He dropped a stack of folders on Hale's desk and walked on. "You'll want to get this processed fast," Ramirez muttered, almost to himself. Hale smirked. Already handled. He shoved the report forward, sliding it across the desk. Disorderly conduct. Classic. Marcus shifted, steel biting into his skin. You falsify one line, officer, and it follows you the rest of your career. Hale turned, his grin brittle. You think I care about a record? I care about control. He tapped the paper. And this is control. The room thickened. Other officers hovered in the periphery, sipping coffee, stacking files, laughing low. None intervened. Their silence was louder than Hale's words. Marcus leaned forward, voice low. That silence out there is complicity. You all know what's happening. Chairs creaked. No one looked at him. Phone call, Marcus demanded. Hale didn't move. He let the request hang. Finally, with mock patience, he said, "You'll get your call when we finish." Time stretched. Hale's pen scratched again, louder now, deliberate. Marcus fixed his eyes on the ceiling light, its hum vibrating in his skull like a drill. Discipline kept him upright, but rage churned in his gut. An hour passed. 2. The station clock ticked too loud. Hale laughed at something, another officer whispered. The laughter echoed down the sterile hallway, erasing Marcus's years of medals, campaigns, and folded flags. At last, Hale snapped the file shut. Process him, Ramirez hesitated, voice low, uncertain. Sir, the ID hold. Cut him off with a glare. Do your job. Marcus's throat tightened. He had stood in war zones where bullets tore through sand, where the air reeked of death. But this silence, this calculated, bureaucratic silence, was worse. They led him down a narrow hallway, cuffed, head high. Each step echoed like a drumbeat, a march into humiliation. The phone call never came. The shift in the room was subtle at first, a glance, a murmur, the quick shuffle of papers. Marcus sat in the holding cell, the metal bench biting into his back, while his wallet lay open on the booking desk just beyond the bars. Officer Ramirez hovered there, fingers drumming nervously on the leather. Finally, he picked it up, thumb brushing the golden crest. His lips moved as he read the words, Major General Marcus A. Reed. Holy, he stopped himself, eyes flicking toward Hale. You didn't tell me he was. Hale's hand shot out, snatching the wallet away. Doesn't matter who he thinks he is. Out there, he's just another perp. Marcus's voice cut clean through the space. You know that's a lie. The sound of his words stilled the room. He wasn't shouting, wasn't pleading. It was the voice of command, tempered steel, worn smooth by years in service. Officers looked up from their desks. One cleared his throat. Uneasy. Captain Morris emerged from his office then, tie loosened, his face carved in lines of authority. What's this about? Ramirez held up the wallet. Sir, he's. Hale jumped in. General or janitor, doesn't change what happened. He resisted. Marcus rose to his feet, chain clinking at his wrist. You're fabricating a report against a decorated officer of the United States military. You understand the gravity of that. The captain froze. For a long second, the fluorescent lights buzzed and no one breathed. Then Morris reached out, took the wallet, and studied the ID with eyes that hardened by the second. Jesus Christ, Hale. His voice was low, dangerous. Do you have any idea who you've just dragged in here? Hale stiffened. I had, 'cause he was suspicious. Loitering after dark. He's a damn general, Maurice snapped. He has clearance above half this department. This isn't just an arrest. This is a scandal waiting to explode. Marcus's gaze didn't leave Hale. His ribs still ached, but his voice carried steady. You beat me in a parking lot because of the color of my skin. Rank doesn't erase what you did. For the first time, Hale faltered, his smirk-thinned eyes darting around at his colleagues. He's spinning it, trying to play victim. You know how they enough. Morris barked. He turned to Marcus. General, I apologize for the oversight. We'll resolve this quietly. Marcus's chest tightened. Quietly. That word had followed him his whole life. Quiet when denied service as a boy. Quiet when a teacher looked through him. Quiet when neighbors clutched their purses at his approach. And now, quiet when a baton bruised his ribs. He stepped closer to the bars, his voice a low blade. No, Captain, you don't get to bury this. Not this time. A murmur rippled through the station. Some officers avoided his gaze. Others stared, as if realizing for the first time the magnitude of what had happened. Ramirez swallowed. Sir, if word gets out, it already has, Marcus said. He thought of the glowing phones in the parking lot, the eyes watching, the silence breaking, piece by piece. Maurice scrubbed a hand down his face. We'll need statements, reports, damage control. Hale slammed his fist on the desk. This is ridiculous. He was out there, acting suspicious, refusing orders. What was I supposed to do? Salute him? Marcus didn't flinch. You were supposed to see a man buying groceries, that's all. The words cut sharper than Hale's baton had. The room seemed smaller, the silence thicker. Maurice's voice dropped, gravel and defeat. Get him released now, before this escalates. Hale's jaw flexed, rage simmering. He didn't move. Ramirez stepped forward, unlocking the cell with shaking hands. General Reed, you're free to go. Marcus stepped out, back straight, the weight of command in every motion. His wrists throbbed where the cuffs had bitten, but his gaze was unbroken. He passed Hale slowly, their shoulders almost brushing. The officer's breath hitched. Marcus didn't speak, didn't need to. Silence itself became condemnation. But in that silence, one truth settled over Marcus like a shadow. Freedom here didn't mean justice, not yet. The station door slammed shut behind Marcus, but the echo followed him into the night. His chest burned where the baton had struck. Each breath scraped, shallow and sharp. The street smelled of damp asphalt and exhaust. Neon from a liquor store sign buzzing weakly overhead. His phone was returned. The screen cracked, battery at 9%. He stared at it for a long moment before pressing the number he knew by heart. It rang twice. Dad. His daughter's voice was brisk, edged with concern. Camille Reed never wasted words. Years in courtrooms had carved her speech into something sharp, deliberate. Marcus swallowed. I'm all right. That's a lie. Your voice always drops when you're covering pain. He closed his eyes. He could see her even now, in her apartment, pacing with a pen in hand, jaw tight. They took me in. Officer Hale, parking lot outside Jefferson's. A pause, then a sharp inhale. What charge? Disorderly conduct. Resisting. Her tone, iced over, fabricated. Yes. Silence pressed between them, thick with things neither wanted to say. Finally, Camille spoke. They'll try to bury this, Dad. Especially once they realized who you are. Marcus let the phone rest against his forehead, the metal railing cold at his back. I don't want who I am to matter. I want what happened to matter. You think they'll let that distinction stand? Her laugh was bitter. No. They'll twist it, spin you as privileged, ungrateful, or erase it altogether. He didn't answer. His ribs throbbed. Dad, listen to me. You cannot let them control the narrative. Not this time. Her words were urgent, like commands. For a moment, he heard echoes of his own tone in hers, the one he'd used barking orders in combat zones. Camille, his throat tightened. I don't want you dragged into this. I'm already in it. I'm your daughter. That badge on your ID doesn't shield me when I'm walking down the street. The words cut. He knew they were true. Someone was recording, Marcus said finally. There were kids there. Phones out. Then it's already spreading, she replied. We use that. We build pressure. We don't stay quiet. His hand clenched around the phone. Quiet. That word again. The word every institution demanded. He thought of the captain's face, the officers turning away, silence, wrapped in uniforms. Camille's voice softened, but only slightly. Dad, how bad? He hesitated, baton to the ribs, bruising, no breaks. Her breath hitched. They laid hands on you. Yes, you're a general, decorated. They still. Her voice faltered, then steadied. We fight this. He opened his eyes, the night pressing close, streetlight buzzing above him. Camille, fighting doesn't always end the way you think. Sometimes you win, and it still costs you everything. I know, she said quietly, but if we don't fight, it costs more. They both fell silent. Traffic hissed in the distance. Somewhere, a dog barked, sharp and lonely. Finally, Marcus said, tomorrow, we'll talk tomorrow. Tomorrow, she echoed. The call ended, but her words clung to him. Don't stay quiet. Marcus slipped the phone into his pocket, exhaling slow. Across the street, a man lingered by the corner store, phone raised, recording him. Marcus met his eyes. The man lowered the device quickly, but not before Marcus realized the story was already out of his hands, already moving, already multiplying. He adjusted his coat, ignoring the stab of pain in his ribs, and walked into the night. By morning, the station parking lot looked nothing like the night before. Satellite vans lined the curb, their dishes tilted toward the sky. Reporters swarmed the steps, microphones bristling like bayonets. Cameramen crouched low, lenses pointed, waiting. Inside, the walls sweated tension. Officers muttered in corners, avoiding eye contact. Phones rang nonstop. The press office barricaded under a flood of inquiries. Hale paced the briefing room, jaw clenched, eyes wild. It's exaggeration. They'll spin anything for clicks. He resisted. I handled it. End of story. Captain Morris slammed a file down, papers scattering. End of story. Are you deaf? There's footage, dozens of angles. Kids posted it to TikTok, Instagram, hell. It's on CNN's morning reel. A TV mounted in the corner proved him right. Grainy video played on loop. Hale's baton swinging. Marcus collapsing against the hood. Groceries spilling like blood across the pavement. Over and over, the blow landed. The anchors' voices were grave, clipped, surgical in their condemnation. Hale sneered. Out of context garbage. Marcus sat quietly in the corner, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the screen. His ribs burned, but he made no sound. The images spoke louder than he could. Reporters outside shouted questions through the glass. General Reed, are you pressing charges? Do you believe race was a factor? Do you feel betrayed by law enforcement? Maurice turned on Hale. You don't speak to press. You don't step outside. Understand, I did my job. Hale snapped back. This department's supposed to back me. This department is bleeding out because of you, Maurice growled. Silence followed. Only the TV spoke, replaying Marcus's humiliation. Then Marcus rose, his voice cutting through the tension. You can try to bury the truth in reports, in silence, in spin, but the world has already seen. You can't erase that. Officers shifted, uncomfortable. One muttered, he's right. Hale spun on Marcus, fury flaring. You don't get to lecture me, old man. You're not in charge here. Marcus stepped closer, eyes level, tone quiet but lethal. I've commanded men under fire. You think this badge gives you power? It gives you fear. And fear always rots the hand that holds it. The words hung in the room like smoke. Outside, the chant began. First, a handful of voices, then more, swelling until the walls seemed to vibrate. Justice for Reed. Justice for Reed. Morris pressed fingers to his temple. This department's finished if we don't contain this. Hale's laugh was brittle. Contain it? Watch. By next week, they'll move on. They always do. But Marcus heard the chant grow louder, steady as a drumbeat. He knew Hale was wrong. This time, the silence was breaking. The courthouse smelled of old wood and disinfectant, its marble halls echoing every footstep like a drumbeat. Marcus entered through the side door, escorted by Camille. Cameras flashed outside, reporters shouting his name. But here, in the corridors lined with portraits of stern-faced judges, everything was hushed. Inside the courtroom, the air was heavier. Ceiling fans spun slowly, stirring nothing. The judge, an older man with a face carved in stone, adjusted his glasses and tapped the gavel once. Case of State versus Marcus A. Reed. Disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. His tone was flat, almost weary, but Marcus heard the undercurrent, dismissive, impatient. Camille rose immediately. Your Honor, these charges are baseless. My client was assaulted without cause. Hale shifted at the witness table, jaw tight. His uniform was crisp, hair combed back, the model of authority. He leaned forward, speaking with false calm. The defendant ignored lawful commands. He refused to present identification and behaved in an aggressive manner. I acted appropriately to maintain safety. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Marcus sat silent, hands folded, eyes steady. His ribs ached beneath his jacket. Each breath a reminder of the blow. Camille stepped closer to Hale, her voice cutting like glass. Is it standard practice to demand identification from a man carrying groceries? Officer Hale. Hale's jaw flexed. He was loitering in a high-crime area after dark. So buying milk is now loitering. The courtroom stirred, low laughter mingling with disbelief. The judge banged the gavel. Order. Camille's tone sharpened. You struck my client before he made any aggressive move. Do you deny that? Hale's mouth opened, then closed. His eyes flicked toward the bench. He resisted. Objection, Camille snapped. There is clear video evidence showing otherwise. The judge's face barely shifted. Objection noted. Proceed. Marcus felt the bias tighten the air. The judge's words carried the same tone he had heard in other rooms, other decades. Polite dismissal cloaked in authority. Camille pressed harder. Tell the court. Officer Hale, did you know at the time that the man you struck was a decorated major general? Hale's silence was answer enough. No further questions, she said coldly. Hale returned to his seat, but not before glaring at Marcus. A flash of venom behind the mask. Camille leaned to Marcus, whispering, they'll drag this out. They'll make it about procedure, not principle. Marcus whispered back, that's what they always do. The judge turned. General Reed, Do you wish to make a statement? Every head in the courtroom swiveled. Marcus rose slowly, pain flaring in his ribs. His voice was calm, measured. I have spent 30 years serving this nation. I have fought for freedoms most people here only read about. And yet, in a parking lot a mile from my home, none of that mattered. I was not seen as a citizen, not even as a man, only as a threat. The silence was absolute. The words hung heavy, undeniable. The judge cleared his throat. This court will review the evidence. We will reconvene next week. Gavel down. Case delayed. Marcus sat again, the weight of silence pressing back down. He knew delay was a weapon, but so was truth, and truth was already out there, multiplying across screens, chants, voices. As he stood to leave, Hale leaned close, muttering under his breath, "This isn't over." Marcus didn't turn. He didn't need to. His answer was already written in the bruises across his chest, and in the eyes of the crowd waiting outside. The air in the courtroom was colder on the second day, though no windows were open. Marcus could feel it, the machinery turning against him. Subtle but relentless. Camille stood ready at the defense table, papers stacked, her jaw clenched like stone. Across from her, Officer Hale wore the same smug uniform, shoulders squared. But now, another man was seated beside him, Officer Daniels, a veteran cop with 20 years on the force and a reputation for loyalty. The judge adjusted his glasses. "We will now hear testimony from Officer Daniels." Marcus exhaled slowly. He had spoken to Daniels once or twice in passing, brief nods in grocery aisles, polite exchanges at community events. The man had always seemed courteous, even deferential. But when he walked to the stand, Marcus saw the shift. Eyes down, voice clipped, rehearsed. "Officer Daniels," the prosecutor began, "tell the court what you witnessed the night of October 14th. Daniels cleared his throat. "I observed General Reed behaving erratically. He was raising his voice, refusing lawful commands. Officer Hale attempted to de-escalate, but the suspect resisted." Marcus's head lifted sharply. Camille's pen tapped once against the table. "Are you under oath stating that my client resisted?" she demanded. Daniels hesitated only a fraction. "Yes." Camille stepped closer. "Did you see him throw a punch, grab an officer, make any move that could be described as physical aggression?" Daniels's mouth tightened. "No, but his tone was confrontational. His stance was aggressive." The gallery rustled. Someone whispered, "Aggressive for standing still." Camille's voice cut like ice. "So, to be clear, the only threat you observed was a man raising his voice after being stopped without cause." Daniels's shoulders shifted, uncomfortable. "That's how it appeared, yes." Marcus stared at him, the betrayal sharp as the baton had been. He thought of all the soldiers who had stood beside him under fire, who had never once flinched from telling the truth. Daniels couldn't hold his gaze. Camille pressed, "Officer Daniels, are you aware of the bystander footage now, circulating online?" A pause. "Yes." "Does that footage show my client resisting?" Daniels swallowed. "No." "Then why testify otherwise?" The silence stretched. The union lawyer beside Hale shifted in his chair, signaling a warning. Daniels's jaw flexed. "I'm here to support my fellow officer." The words landed heavy. Loyalty over truth, brotherhood over justice. Camille turned to the judge. No further questions. Marcus leaned back, ribs aching, fury locked behind his eyes. He whispered to her as she sat. They'd perjure themselves just to hold the line. Camille didn't look at him. "That line is cracking. They don't realize it yet." The judge cleared his throat. "The court will review testimonies in full. Next witness to be called tomorrow." Gavel struck. Session closed. Outside, the crowd had grown. Signs rose high. "Justice for Reed. No more silence. End qualified immunity." Chants rolled like thunder, a living wave. Reporters pressed forward as Marcus exited with Camille. "General, how do you respond to Officer Daniels's testimony?" Marcus stopped. He looked at the lenses, the notepads, the eager faces. His ribs throbbed, his pride bled, but his voice was clear. "I respond the same way I've lived my life, with truth. Betrayal doesn't erase it, silence doesn't bury it, and loyalty to lies doesn't make them true." The chants roared louder. Camille touched his arm lightly. "Careful, Dad. They'll twist every word." "I know," he murmured, "but silence is worse." From the courthouse steps, he looked back once, seeing Hale's face in the doorway, pale, rigid, the smile gone. For the first time, Marcus thought, the man was starting to realize he was losing, but the cost of that realization was already etched deep into Marcus's body. his spirit, and he knew the trial of truth had only just begun. The footage spread like wildfire. By dawn, it had been stitched into montages on YouTube, dissected in podcasts, replayed on news loops. Each frame replayed the same brutal truth: Hale's baton swinging, Marcus collapsing, milk spilling like blood across the pavement. At the precinct, officers avoided the cameras parked across the street. The chant outside never stopped. Now, day into night, a steady drumbeat of outrage. Justice for Reed. No more lies. Inside the briefing room, Captain Morris barked orders over the din. Phones off. No statements. Anyone leaks, you're finished. But the walls themselves seemed to leak. Emails surfaced. Old complaints against Hale circulated on social media. Traffic stops gone wrong. Excessive force brushed under the rug. Each story sharpened the narrative. Hale slammed his fist on the table. They're fabricating half of this. Nobody cared before. Why now? Because it's on video, Ramirez muttered from the corner. His tone was quiet, but it cut through the room. You can't spin what the whole world can see. Hal turned on him, eyes wild. Whose side are you on? Ramirez didn't flinch. Truth's not a side. Maurice cut in. Enough, Officer Hale. You're on administrative leave, effective immediately. Badge and gun. Now, the words hung like a guillotine. Hale's face strained, fury rising in its place. You're sacrificing me to save yourselves. Cowards. No one answered. The silence condemned him louder than words could. Across town, Marcus sat with Camille in her apartment, television flickering. A panel of commentators debated his case. One voice praised his composure. Another dismissed him as leveraging victimhood. The split screen showed protests swelling, banners waving, chants carrying into night skies. Marcus rubbed his ribs, wincing. Camille watched him, arms folded. You see what's happening. They can't bury it now. His gaze stayed fixed on the screen. They'll try. They always try. She turned to him sharply. And if they succeed? He finally looked at her. Then we keep going. On the TV, a new clip played. Marcus's own words from the courthouse steps. Betrayal doesn't erase truth. Silence doesn't bury it. His voice, steady, was already echoing in thousands of homes. Camille's eyes softened. You've become the story. He shook his head slowly. No, the story's bigger than me. It always has been. At that same hour, Hal sat alone in his darkened kitchen, badge stripped, uniform folded on the table. The glow of his phone lit his face as he scrolled through headlines. Officer suspended in general's arrest. Pattern of misconduct emerges. Department under fire. His hand trembled. Rage and fear warred inside him. For the first time, he understood. The shield of silence was gone. And out in the streets, the crowd grew. Drums pounded. Voices swelled. Each chant, each raised sign, each phone lifted high. All of it was exposure. Burning bright against the darkness. The machine that had buried truth for so long was cracking, and once a crack starts, nothing can hold the flood back. The courthouse steps were a wall of sound. Reporters pressed forward, cameras flashed like artillery fire, and the chant of protesters rolled through the air. Justice for Reed. Justice for Reed. Inside, the atmosphere was different. Tense, brittle. Hal sat at the defense table, stripped of his uniform, a plain suit clinging awkwardly to his frame. His face was pale, jaw locked, eyes darting between the judge, the jury, and the sea of notepads in the gallery. Marcus sat quietly beside Camille. He wore no medals, no ribbons, only a dark jacket that didn't quite hide the bruises beneath. His presence filled the room anyway, not with volume, not with anger, but with the weight of quiet endurance. The prosecutor stood, voice sharp. Officer Hale is charged with assault, falsification of records, and violation of civil rights under color of law. Each word was a hammer. Hale's lawyer rose in defense, rattling through phrases, split-second judgment, maintaining order, misinterpretation, but the words sounded thin against the backdrop of the videos, the chants outside, the pressure of eyes watching from across the nation. Camille rose for cross-examination, her voice steady, cold. Officer Hale, do you deny striking General Reed before he made any physical movement against you? Hale's throat bobbed. He was non-compliant. Do you deny falsifying your report to claim resistance? His silence was louder than any denial. Camille pressed harder. Do you deny that bystanders' footage shows a man standing still, hands raised, carrying nothing but groceries? The gallery murmured. Hale's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Hale's lips parted, but no sound came. Sweat dotted his forehead. Finally, the judge leaned forward. Answer the question. Hale faltered. voice cracking. I followed procedure. Camille's reply was a knife. No procedure authorizes a lie. The room froze. Hale's shoulders sagged. For the first time, his defiance cracked, the mask slipping. He looked less like an officer of the law and more like a man cornered by truth. The prosecutor stepped in, summing the case with clipped precision. This was not policing. This was prejudice weaponized with a badge. And today, accountability stands where silence used to be. The jury filed out, deliberations brief. Less than an hour later, they returned, guilty. The word struck like thunder. On all counts. The crowd outside erupted. Cheers, tears, fists raised. The chant shifted, rolling through the city streets. Accountability. Justice now. Inside, Marcus did not cheer. He simply sat, breathing slow, staring at the man who had swung the baton. Hale looked back at him, eyes hollow, realization dawning too late. Camille touched Marcus's hand, whispering, "It's done." But Marcus shook his head slightly. "No, this part is done. The wound remains." She searched his face, saw the truth there, the ache that would never leave, the scars beneath the verdict. As they walked out into the flashing storm of cameras and voices, Marcus held his head high, not in triumph but in survival. Justice had been spoken, yes, but justice was never enough to erase the cost. The crowd parted as he descended the steps. A tide of faces lifted toward him. To them, he was a symbol. To himself, he was still a man who had gone to buy groceries and come home with bruises that medals could never shield. And yet, as the chants swelled around him, as Hale was led away in cuffs, Marcus felt something shift. Not closure, not healing, but the faintest sense that silence had lost. For once, the courthouse emptied slowly, the crowd outside dispersing into side streets where chants still lingered like smoke after fire. Camera crews folded tripods, activists locked arms, and strangers embraced in tears and relief. Marcus walked down the steps last, Camille at his side. The flash of lights chased him, microphones thrust forward, reporters shouted his name. General Reed. Any comment? Do you feel justice was served? What comes next? He said nothing. His silence was deliberate, heavier than any speech. Camille leaned close. You could speak. People want to hear you. His gaze swept over the crowd, the faces, the hands holding signs, the children sitting on shoulders. His chest tightened. Not every wound needs words. Sometimes silence says more. She studied him, then nodded, her grip tightening on his arm. They moved through the throng. Car doors opening, the driver waiting, but Marcus stopped before entering. He turned back, eyes on the courthouse where Hale had been led away in cuffs. The building loomed, stone and cold, its history layered with verdicts that had gone the other way. He thought of those whose stories had never made it to court, whose bruises faded without headlines, whose names never became chants. His own survival felt like a coin tossed in the air. Chance, timing, exposure. Camille broke the stillness. You won today. Marcus shook his head. No, we didn't win. We exposed. Winning means the next man doesn't bleed on the sidewalk for buying milk. Her voice caught. And if that day never comes, his eyes hardened. Then we keep standing. Silence is a luxury we can't afford. The ride home was quiet. Marcus stared out the window at murals painted overnight, fists raised, names in bold colors. The word justice sprawled across brick walls. At Camille's apartment, he sat alone by the window, city lights flickering below. His ribs ached with every breath. The echo of chants still rang in his ears. But beneath it all, a quieter truth gnawed. The verdict had punished one man, not the system that built him. Camille entered with tea, setting it down beside him. Rest, you've carried too much. Marcus touched the cup, the warmth seeping into his bruised hand. I can't rest, not yet. She sat opposite, her eyes searching his. So what do you do now? He didn't answer at first, his gaze fixed on the skyline, the horizon tinged with the faintest glow of morning. Finally, his voice came, low but steady. I tell the story, again and again, until silence breaks for good. The city outside stirred with early traffic, the world resuming its routine. But in that quiet apartment, with bruises still healing and headlines still blazing, Marcus carried the weight of silence like a burden he refused to set down. Because silence, he knew, was how injustice survived. And breaking it again, tomorrow, and the day after, was the only justice that could ever last.